Good evening and welcome to Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, the Maine thing. Donald Trump visits the state of Maine, the place once singled out as a presidential bellwether. As Maine goes, so goes the nation, was the old saying. And the state picked presidential winners for the better part of a century, from 1832 till 1932. The way I see it, the rally this afternoon in Portland was the perfect place for Mr. Trump to put together a second day of sending a clear message from the stump. Despite the establishment echo chamber claiming that his campaign is in disarray, Trump has been on target. He was very focused in Florida yesterday, and he continues to draw large, enthusiastic crowds, also packing the Portland venue today. That is in stark contrast to his Democrat opponent, who visited a union hall in Las Vegas. Her event wasn't completely empty, but it wasn't full either. What Mrs. Clinton misses in terms of crowds, she makes up for in terms of positive press. While Trump in turmoil remains the meme of the media, the adoring coverage and the portrayal of Hillary in cruise control is not exactly accurate. That's why Trump trained some of his rhetorical fire on the press this afternoon, talking up his relationship with his running mate and running down the leftist press.
A couple of the papers, not all of them, I must say, most of them wrote it legitimately, but a couple of them said, there's a fissure between Pence and Trump. There's a fissure. It's so dishonest. These newspapers, the media folks, they are so dishonest.
Well, thank goodness we're not the media, we're Newsmax TV. And a quick reminder is in order now that we will be taking your phone calls for the next hour at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. To talk more about the state of the Trump campaign, we're very pleased to be joined by Jeff Crouere. Jeff is the co-chair of the Louisiana Trump Campaign and was a Louisiana Trump delegate. He's also the host of the radio and TV program Down by the Bayou, and it's called Ringside Politics. And he's taking the gloves off tonight. Also, Jeff is the author of the book America's Last Chance. And we're also pleased to be joined tonight by the president of the Rasmussen Media Group, Scott Rasmussen. Scott's also a political strategist and a New York Times bestselling author, and he's very nice to Skype in tonight down the shore somewhere in New Jersey. Gentlemen, good to have you both here. Guys, Michael Reagan was on this program last night. He says Donald Trump needs to stay on message and not get drawn into side issues in order to win this thing. Let's listen to what Michael had, then I will seek your reaction after we listen.
If he doesn't have discipline, he will never see the inside of the White House unless he's invited to a state dinner, and that won't be by Hillary. If he got shut up and put in a soundproof room and not open until November 9th, he'd win this thing going away.
So, Jeff, is Mr. Trump at this juncture his own worst enemy?
Thanks for having me, by the way. I think that that's partially true. I think he gets a bad rap from the press, and they're constantly on him, as you said in your opening statement. But I do wish he would focus on the issues and focus on Hillary. On the issues, his stands on the issues are popular. Go up and down the list. The American people are with him on immigration and on taxes and on defense and on fighting ISIS and on the border. If he focuses on the issues and on Hillary, I think he wins. And I think that's good advice from Michael Reagan.
Scott, I was checking out our parent website, Newsmax.com, and you have an interesting column there. You write that Donald Trump wants to be president, but on his terms.
Exactly. You know, all kinds of pundits and Republican officials are asking, does Donald Trump really want to win? And they look at some of the turmoil in the last couple of days, and some of it has been these distractions where Donald Trump is getting away from the issues, drawing attention away from Hillary Clinton, and they're saying, is he trying to sabotage his own campaign? I think that really is missing the point. Donald Trump ran for president in a very unconventional way. He won the Republican primary on his terms. He wants to win the general election on his terms. And if he becomes president, he will not behave as president the way that Barack Obama has or George W. Bush has. Now, to some people, that's scary. To some people, that's thrilling. And to many, it probably couldn't be any worse than the status quo. But we cannot evaluate Donald Trump's campaign in a typical political mindset. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump's campaign is an enormous threat to all those pollsters and consultants in Washington because he's not using them. What happens if he wins? How are they going to justify those fees next time around?
Well, gentlemen, I tell you what, let's find out what those watching us tonight have to say. And we begin with the phone calls coming in at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629, with Marcia calling in from Garden City, New York. Marcia, welcome.
Hi, JD.
Hi.
I appreciate the fact you did double shifting there for quite some time.
Well, it was my honor.
And I, in Garden City, New York, I used to be a Garden Stater, so along with your guest.
So you know
in
all
any
about
case,
going down the shore. That's good.
Oh, yeah, the shore on the way to Cape May. And so, I just want to say this. I don't think Trump's campaign is in free fall at all. I think, first of all, a few examples. Number one, these polls are rigged. I just saw a thing today where a lot of these pollsters purposely go after Democratic voters, a vast majority of Democratic voters in their polling to see who they're going to vote for.
Well, you know,
Number
Marcia,
two,
you make a very good point here, and we understand the methodology of the polling, but, you know, it's interesting. It's almost as if you're prescient because you brought up two topics we want to talk about. First of all, Trump yesterday in Florida insisting, like Marcia, that there is no campaign disunity. Here's the way he said it in the Sunshine State.
The campaign is doing really well. It's never been so well united. And we started on June 16th. I would say right now it's the best in terms of being united that it's been since we began.
And Dwight Eisenhower, who did pretty well in presidential politics, says a leader is always optimistic. There he was on the stump. So that's point one. To what Marcia was saying. And gentlemen, let's talk some about those poll numbers because there are some curious facts. You know, the things that are being publicized, curiously, North Carolina left off the list where Donald Trump leads. Sure, Mrs. Clinton is ahead in New Hampshire. In Pennsylvania, although there I understand they've played fast and loose with a margin of error. Michigan has Hillary up by 9. Now Florida, apparently she is leading by 6. But Scott, you used to spend more than just a little bit of time with polls. Tell us how you feel about these things. Are we seeing likely voters in all of these estimations, or is this an effort to go along with the meme that Trump's campaign is falling apart?
Well, it's not an intentional meme to suggest that Trump's campaign is falling apart. And nationally, there are more Democrats than Republicans. I mean, that is a reality of life in America today. There's also a large number of independent voters. Exactly what the mix of who's going to show up and vote on Election Day, none of us can tell that right now. I would expect that the youth vote will be down this year because millennials are unhappy with both candidates. Well, that's bad news for the Democrats. Minority turnout may be down as well. When we get hung up on these things, though, I think we're missing the bigger picture. Right now, if you took a look at all the national numbers, Donald Trump is probably down by 5 or 6 points. If you make some assessment or some adjustment for the fact that turnout may be a little different, that's a couple of points, could go either way. And then you're in a situation where this is a close race and it's going to be decided by things that really happen in the real world, not by what Donald Trump says or Hillary Clinton says or what the Washington Post says. If there's an event in September or October that really shakes things up, and there certainly have been terror attacks and police shootings and other things that could fall into that category, there's bad economic news, that will probably decide the campaign more than anything else that we're talking about today. That and the way the candidates respond to it.
Jeff Crouere, you live down there in Louisiana, and the guys I served with in Congress, it's as if they started in politics in the cradle, man. I mean, you guys are really charged up with politics there in the Bayou State. Let me go to the state of my birth, North Carolina. I just want to get this in. The Civitas poll has Trump up by 4. I know the national press will say this is an outlier, but the nature of the campaign, in addition to the big event that Scott talks about, Jeff, the fact is that this polling is going to be a seesaw all the way through, will it not?
JD, you're right. By the way, Trump is up by 17 here in Louisiana.
How about that now? All right.
And the media jumps on these polls. It gives them a story. I saw one network today. They were running the whole day with just one poll. But I think it is going to go up and down. And let's not forget, we have the WikiLeaks issue. We could have more emails that are coming out. That could be a big factor that changes this race. And I believe that Donald Trump is going to do well in the debates. I think that is going to help him. Those are going to be great opportunities. If we make sure that the debates aren't on the same night as all the NFL games and people are going to be watching them, I think that'll really help him as well.
But you know what? If they go ahead and have them when the NFL games are going, and Scott, you're the communications guy, but I was thinking about this. I'd just buy time during the game with debate highlights. Here's what our man did against Hillary. If I were the Trump campaign, I would make a heavy buy throughout those NFL games. So that's just my take. 30 seconds, Scott. Does that sound like a valid strategy?
Well, actually, I think what I would do more is do social media plays, because a lot of people are going to be watching the football game and also working on their devices. And you're right. Look, the whole debate is not the critical part. You want to send out your highlights. I think the issues here all the way through are that this is unpredictable. We're not quite sure where we are because we've never seen a candidate like this or a campaign like this. Way too early to say the race is over.
Well, that's for sure, and there are going to be a whole lot of moving parts. And speaking of moving, a programming reminder is in order. If you watch Newsmax TV on DirecTV, our primetime programming will move to channel 366 in another week. But you can start watching us there now, so check us out on DirecTV channel 366. Our two friends are coming back. Continuing now on Newsmax Prime by pondering political pairings. For example, history reminds us that back in the 1800s, the Whigs had Tippecanoe and Tyler too. The Democrats in the 1960s had JFK and LBJ. Now, this next political pairing is not a presidential and vice presidential candidate, but it's two well-known guys here in the 21st century, Dirty Harry and the Donald. John Bachman reports that Clint Eastwood has come to the aid of Donald Trump, but in the process may have delineated a demographic divide.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Clint Eastwood has no patience for the current generation of Americans and says he's backing Donald Trump, even though the GOP nominee has, quote, said a lot of dumb things.
Well, you're gonna pull those pistols or whistle Dixie.
He's onto something, because secretly everybody's getting tired of political correctness, kissing up. The 86-year-old four-time Oscar winner also offered a harsh assessment of Americans in a new interview with Esquire magazine. That's the kiss-ass generation we're in right now. We're really in a generation. Everybody's walking on eggshells.
Get off my lawn.
Eastwood admits he first started to feel that way when he read the script for Gran Torino. The star of iconic films such as The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Dirty Harry, calls the choice between Clinton and Trump a tough one, adding he'd have to go for Trump because Hillary would, quote, follow in Obama's footsteps.
You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
And when somebody does not do the job, we've got to let them go.
In the Esquire interview, Clint Eastwood also addresses his infamous 2012 Republican National Convention speech. He reveals the inspiration for that speech, that it came from a Neil Diamond song, but now he says he's somewhat troubled by it because he feels like it came off as silly. JD, back to you.
All righty, John. It's interesting, Clint reviewing his own performance. Remember, we are taking your calls tonight at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. And let's welcome back in our panel. Skyping in from the Bayou State of Louisiana, co-chair of the Trump campaign in that state and Trump delegate to the National Convention, Jeff Crouere, and also Skyping in the president of the Rasmussen Media Group, noted political strategist Scott Rasmussen. Now, gentlemen, Paul Manafort showed up on ABC's Good Morning America today, and Paul responded to tensions between Speaker Ryan and Mr. Trump and the GOP nominee not endorsing the Speaker's reelection. Let's look and listen.
There's a conflict within the Trump campaign, and we've sort of had a rule of not getting involved in primaries because it's usually not a good situation for the presidential candidate. Of course he's going to work with Paul Ryan. Of course he's tried to bridge the party together with Paul Ryan. But Ryan is also running against somebody who's not going to win, but nonetheless, he's a strong supporter of Mr. Trump's.
So Manafort gives cover to the speaker, and at the same time, I think his initial position, Jeff, was a good one, saying, look, we don't get involved in primaries. Let the Republicans there pick their primary. And we had, by the way, Paul Nealon on this program last night. He's a pretty strong candidate against Speaker Ryan.
I like Paul Nealon. I've interviewed him myself. He agrees with Trump. He's been supportive of Trump. And Paul Ryan has been a thorn in Trump's side now for months. And I think it's payback. And I think there's no reason why Donald Trump should support someone who hasn't been supportive of him. And I'm glad he didn't endorse him.
Well, and I got to tell you, Scott, it may violate all the rules, but it was delicious when Trump was interviewed by the Washington Post to use that Paul Ryan verbiage that we saw on CNN this spring. I'm just not there yet. Is this really a big deal to the Trump campaign?
No, look, first of all, I think Donald Trump had some fun with the language, had some fun tweaking or pushing back at Paul Ryan. It's a good thing to energize his core supporters. But I'll tell you what, when I'm done this interview, I'm going up on the boardwalk. I'm going to see a lot of people eating ice cream cones, and they're not even going to know about the spat between Paul Ryan and Donald Trump and John McCain, because they're focused on more important things. This is not the way the campaign is decided. This is what political pundits talk about. A simple way to think about this campaign is if the race is about Hillary Clinton, she will lose. If the race is about Donald Trump, he will lose. But if the race is about bringing about change for the American people, well, that's a winning position. And Donald Trump, if he can avoid getting distracted with too many other things, can present himself as the authentic candidate for change. That's what he's got to go for.
Gentlemen, let's go back to the phones now at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Let's go to the city of big shoulders, Chicago. That's where Nick is on the line. Hiya, Nick.
Hi. I want to say that what Trump has to do is remember that most people run for office and have political ambitions. They start out low and then work their way on up high. You know, they don't right away run for president, no matter how much of a good background they have. The reason is, and what's good about that is when you make mistakes, and you always will, you got low publicity also, and then you learn as you go along. So Trump has to get more of these undecideds to start swinging over them. His regular followers will stick with him no matter what, pretty much. But you got to get more and more and more of these undecideds over.
And the bottom line, what you're telling us, Nick, is Trump has to be a quick study now that he's the nominee of the party. Well, let's go to the guy running the Louisiana campaign. Jeff, do you think Mr. Trump's a talented guy, made a lot of money? Is he a quick study to get ready for the general election here?
He's a quick study. He beat 16 entrenched politicians, and he had never run for office before. We haven't nominated a non-politician since Dwight Eisenhower, who you mentioned earlier. So he's a quick study, and I think he's learning as he goes along. And you point out what this should be about. I really think if we talk about the economy, how people are doing with their lives, people are struggling right now. And Trump is a guy who's created jobs. He's built a business. He's so much stronger on that issue than Hillary. I'm recommending that he really focus on the economy, because I think it's like the old saying back in 1992, it's the economy, stupid. That's always one of the premier, it's always one of the premier issues in a presidential race.
Yeah, and it's not so stupid to focus on the economy, but the other thing, Scott, is national security. Of course, the fallout continues from that $400 million ransom the administration claims was not ransom. It was money owed to Iran. And President Obama over at the Pentagon today got especially exercised over this. Let's watch and listen.
Some of you may recall, we announced these payments in January, many months ago. There wasn't a secret. We announced them to all of you. Josh did a briefing on them. This wasn't some nefarious deal. We were completely open with everybody about it, and it's interesting to me how suddenly this became a story again.
Yeah, isn't there just one flaw in the president's portrayal? If this was so public, why didn't he invite the Iranians over and write them a check? If this was so above board, I guess the bottom line is this, Scott. Is this going to hurt both Obama and Hillary in November?
If people pay attention to it, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those things that Donald Trump needs to say, don't look at me, look at what's happening with the administration, look at what's happening with Hillary Clinton's team. The more that he can focus on that, the better off his campaign is. And it's a difficult place for Donald Trump because he has gotten where he is by being, he says what he thinks on every issue. He is in front of and dominating every conversation. Stepping back is very hard. But he needs to step back for these issues to sink in. And there's a lot of stories out there. Hillary Clinton is the only candidate, or Donald Trump is the only candidate in history with higher unfavorables than Hillary Clinton. So she, under normal circumstances, would be a very weak candidate, and he needs to let that shine through.
All right. Well, I tell you what, about a minute 30 remains. Let's go back to the phones to Red Wing, Minnesota, to visit with Greg. Hi, Greg.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be on this show. I guess there's two big issues that are at stake here: national security and the economy. And this Islamic threat that's going on right now, the West is paralyzed with fear over political correctness. And they're letting these Islamists do their thing, and we've got this violence escalating wherever you go now. And you got to take them at their word. And people, they say it's not a religious thing. Well, ISIS claims it is.
Yeah. Well, you've laid it out here, and Jeff, what Greg is speaking to is the other component. You talked about the economy. But people want a president who will protect the country, not bring in refugees without any type of documentation, not leave the borders wide open. That has been the responsive chord that Donald Trump struck with the American people. You got 20 seconds for the last word.
And be politically incorrect enough to say radical Islamic terrorism, jihadism, the fact that we're facing this threat. It's not extremism. It's from one source. And he's going to be the one that I think is going to tell the American people, level with the American people about the threat we are facing. And I think that's going to connect with
All
voters.
right. Jeff Crouere from Louisiana. Scott Rasmussen down the shore, I should say. Gents, thanks very much. Up next, our good friend Bernie Carrick. Stay here.